In the early 1900s, the world was changing faster than ever before. Nations were growing, technology was advancing, and Europe had become a powder keg. For decades, tension had been building. At the center of the great powers of Europe, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, each expanding their influence across the globe. Most believed war was coming, but no one believed it would come so soon, or be so devastating. Europe had divided itself into two massive alliances. On one side, Britain, France, and Russia, known as the Triple Entente. On the other side stood Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, the Triple Alliance, though Italy would switch sides once the war began. These alliances were meant to keep peace by creating a balance. Instead, they created a situation where war with one country could drag the entire continent into chaos. In the summer of 1914, that chaos arrived. On June 28th in Sarajevo, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austrian-Hungary throne, was assassinated by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip. It shocked the world. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia. Russia supported Serbia. Germany backed Austria. France supported Russia, and Britain joined when Germany invaded Belgium. Within weeks, all of Europe was at war. Instead of a quick conflict that would be over by Christmas, both sides dug in, constructing trenches stretching hundreds of miles from the English Channel to Switzerland. The brutal stalemate was defined by mud, barbed wire, machine guns, and artillery. Soldiers lived and died in the trenches. They were infested with rats. Disease spread like wildfire, and constant fear overtook the men. New weapons transformed the battlefield. Machine guns cut down entire units in seconds. Artillery shells rained down for days at a time. Poison gas drifted across the front lines. Blistering skin, blinding eyes, and choking lungs. And tanks rumbled through no man's land for the first time. It was a mechanized war, the kind no one had seen before. Millions of men were killed in battles that barely moved the front lines. And while Europe was engulfed by war, across the Atlantic, the United States watched from a distance. President Woodrow Wilson declared that America would remain neutral, and most Americans agreed. The nation had its own issues to deal with, and few wanted to get involved in what so many saw was a distant European conflict. But even as the United States tried to stay neutral, the war continued to creep closer. American factories were booming. They supplied food, clothing, and weapons to the Allied powers. America loaned billions of dollars to Britain and France. Germany's use of submarines to disrupt Allied shipping would soon bring U.S. citizens directly into harm's way. As the war dragged on, Britain and France needed enormous amounts of supplies: food, ammunition, steel, and weapons. America became their most important source. Ships were loaded with American goods and crossed the Atlantic. Germany saw this as a direct threat. Their strategy depended on cutting Britain off from supplies. and the only way to do that was through the dangerous weapon that they had mastered, the U-boat. Germany declared the waters around Britain as a war zone and warned that any ship, military or civilian, could be attacked without warning. This policy was called unrestricted submarine warfare. It shocked the world and meant that even passenger liners could be targeted. On May 7, 1915, the war hit home for the Americans in a way that no one expected. The British ocean liner RMS Lusitania was steaming near the coast of Ireland when a German U-boat fired a single torpedo. In just 18 minutes, the massive ocean liner sank below the waves. Nearly 1,200 people died, including 128 American citizens. The sinking outraged the United States, and public opinion began to shift. Many Americans who once supported neutrality now saw Germany as the enemy. President Wilson demanded an apology and that Germany stop attacking civilian ships. For a time, Germany backed down, not wanting to provoke the United States into joining the war. But this uneasy peace did not last for long. By early 1917, Germany had become desperate. The war on the Western Front continued to be a meat grinder, costing both sides hundreds of thousands of lives with little progress. But Germany believed they could starve Britain into surrendering. So Germany made a fateful decision. They reassumed unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking any ship headed for Allied ports, including the Americans. German leaders knew this might bring the United States into the war, but they believed that they could starve Britain before any sizable American force could arrive in Europe. This gamble would ultimately backfire, and just weeks later, another event pushed America over the edge. British intelligence intercepted a secret telegram from German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann to Mexico. The telegram proposed, if Mexico would join the war, Germany promised that Mexico could reclaim lands it lost in the American Southwest. Britain shared the telegram with the United States. The telegram was published on the front page of American newspapers. It shifted public opinion towards war. The United States had reached its breaking point. American merchant ships were falling victim to German U-boats. American lives were being lost. Economic pressure was mounting, and the Zimmermann telegram made it clear that Germany was a threat to the United States itself. President Wilson, the same man who had campaigned for peace and neutrality, now believed that America had no choice. He told Congress that the world must be made safe for democracy. On April 2, 1917, Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. 4 days later, the United States formally entered World War I. Now America would prepare for something it had never done: send a modern army across the ocean into one of the deadliest conflicts in history. America had fought plenty of wars before, but nothing like this. This was a modern industrial war fought with machine guns, artillery barrages, and poison gas. When war was declared, the U.S. Army was small compared to the armies of Europe. Much of its equipment was outdated, and many officers lacked experience. President Wilson signed the Selective Service Act that required all men aged 21 to 30 to register. This was the beginning of America's first modern military draft. Millions of young men across the country registered. America assembled a massive fighting force unlike anything it had seen before, the American Expeditionary Force. Command was given to General John J. Blackjack Pershing, a tough and disciplined officer who believed American soldiers should fight as an independent force. He continuously resisted constant pressure from Allied leaders who wanted American troops to merge with British and French units. Pershing insisted that the U.S. would learn to fight on its own, and he held firm even as the Allies struggled to fight back the German advance. Throughout 1917, American training camps sprang up across France. Farmers, factory workers, salesmen, and college students were transformed into soldiers. They learned trench warfare, marksmanship, gas drills, and how to survive on the Western Front. Training was only half the battle. Getting hundreds of thousands of troops across the Atlantic Ocean was a battle in itself. German U-boats were on patrol and were sinking ships at an alarming rate. To combat this, the U.S. Navy used the convoy system, ships traveling together and surrounding them with destroyers armed with depth charges. The convoy system saved countless lives and allowed America to send a steady flow of troops into Europe. Among those traveling to France were more than 200,000 African American soldiers. Many were assigned labor roles due to segregation, but several units fought bravely on the front lines. The most famous were the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters. They served under French command due to racial discrimination. They spent more time in combat than almost any other American unit and earned France's highest battlefield honors. By autumn of 1917, the first American soldiers reached the Western Front. Their numbers were small at first, and they were placed in quiet sectors to learn from experienced French troops. But by 1918, a steady stream of U.S. soldiers arrived. By the summer, hundreds of thousands of Americans were in France and ready to fight. The Allies had been fighting for years in the trenches, and the arrival of American troops was a turning point. After years of brutal losses and low morale, around this time, Germany was preparing for one final offensive to win the war. The Battle of Cantigny in May 1918 was the first major test for American forces in World War I. It was the first time American troops launched an offensive of their own. They fought fiercely, capturing the village and holding it against repeated German counterattacks. The victory was a huge success for the Americans. It showed that they were ready for major combat and proved their ability to fight as an independent force. Weeks later, American units were sent to the front to help stop Germany's advance towards Paris. At Chateau Thierry, American Marines joined French forces to halt Germany's progress towards the Marne and prevent the Germans from breaking through. Then in June came one of the most legendary battles in Marine Corps history, the Battle of Belleau Wood. In June of 1918, German troops occupied a dense forest that blocked the Allied advance. The Marines were ordered to clear it. The fighting was intense. At one point, when told to retreat, Captain Lloyd Williams replied, "Retreat? Hell, we just got here." After nearly a month of brutal combat, the Americans drove the Germans out. The Marines earned a nickname from the Germans, Teufelhund, or Devil Dogs. Belleau Wood became a defining moment for the Americans. Over 1,000 Marines were killed in the initial assault, and over 9,000 casualties in total. Germany suffered over 10,000 casualties. By late summer, the tide had turned. The Allies, reinforced by ever-increasing American numbers, began pushing Germany back. In September, the U.S. launched its first major independent offensive at St. Mihiel. General Pershing commanded over 500,000 American troops in a coordinated attack that successfully wiped out the German-held salient that had been held since 1914. It featured a massive coordinated air and ground assault. The Meuse-Argonne Offensive, which began on September 26, 1918, was the largest American military operation in history, with over 1.2 million U.S. soldiers taking part in the campaign. The goal was to break through the heavily fortified German defenses and force them to retreat. The fighting was relentless. Mud, dense forest, machine gun nests, and constant artillery fire made every advance costly. Units sometimes gained only a few hundred yards after days of brutal combat. Among the stories of bravery was that of the Lost Battalion, a group of American soldiers cut off behind German lines who refused to surrender and held out under constant attack. There was also Sergeant Alvin York, a quiet Tennessee farmer who single-handedly captured more than 130 German soldiers. For 47 days, American soldiers fought through exhaustion, gas attacks, and staggering losses. But their determination paid off. There were 26,277 Americans killed and 120,000 casualties. At 11 a.m. on the morning of November 11, 1918, the guns finally fell silent. The armistice had been signed. The First World War, the war to end all wars, was finally over. But victory had come at a tremendous cost. The United States suffered over 116,000 killed and more than 300,000 casualties in just over a year of combat. The U.S. had joined the war late, but its sacrifices were enormous. The nation emerged as a major global power with a modern military, a strong economy, and a central role in international politics. The Great War destroyed a generation. Every nation suffered greatly. These are the estimated deaths from each major army. Russia, 1.7 to 1.8 million. France, 1.3 to 1.4 million. Germany, 1.7 to 2 million. Austria-Hungary, 1.1 to 1.5 million. British Empire, 900,000 to 1 million. Ottoman Empire, 325,000. Italy, 460,000 to 650,000. Serbia, 275,000. United States, 116,000. Bulgaria, 87,500. I want to thank y'all for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you on the next. Peace.